Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Agency Side Podcast. I am your host, Justin Levinson, and I am here today with Jordan Fox. He is the CEO of Ad Results Media. They are one of the leading agencies helping brands scale through audio and podcast advertising. His team has worked with some of the biggest names in the world to connect them with top tier audio content, turning listeners into loyal customers. Thank you so much for being here, Jordan.
Thanks for having me.
Cool, man. Well, outside of the brief intro I gave here, maybe you can just enhance that a little bit and explain to the listeners what you guys are doing.
Sure. So Ad Results Media is a specialist media agency. We help brands show up in the world of audio and audio first creators. We've been around really since the beginning of the kind of podcast boom. Although we don't just buy on podcasts, right? We're full spectrum across audio and creators, which means that we're showing up in the realm of streaming music and in radio, which is still a for market that is relevant for a lot of our clients.
Wow. Yeah, that's really fascinating. How does it I guess maybe you can walk me through the pipeline a little bit of how it starts. Is the brand coming to you first? Is that sort of like the beginning of the pipeline where they're saying, "Hey, we want to do some paid media here. Who can you connect us with?"
So, I mean, we meet new clients in a bunch of different ways. Inbound, which you're describing, is a big piece of it because we have a reputation in market as being best in class in this kind of world. So that is a big piece. Inbound. Client referrals is another, right? So happy clients talking to other marketers, which is something that I always love to see. We also have an agency partnerships strategy that drives new business for us, which basically means like audio was kind of in a no man's land for a while when radio kind of manifested itself as a melting ice cube, albeit a slowly melting ice cube, right? So big media agencies gutted their radio teams, gutted, because it was not viewed as a growth area and there was an enormous pressure and still is at the whole co level on margins, right? So they're like, this is not a priority. We're cutting the entirety or the majority of this team. Then over the past couple of years, and I think in an intensified way over the past like 18 months, podcasts have become a huge driver of culture, both in the United States and globally. And all of a sudden, brands are knocking on their agencies' doors saying, how do I show up in this world? And they're not getting great answers. And I guess like the more self-aware AOR folks are like, we need a partner to help us show up rapidly in this space because it is faster and more cost efficient for us rather than trying to now hurriedly piece together an audio specialist team, right? So in light of that, we've been basically arranging partnerships with media AORs that want to serve their clients at like a top tier level in audio and don't want to build a team from scratch to do it. So the kind of first big announcement we made on that front was earlier this year with Stagwell. And so we're across all of Stagwell's media agencies, of which there are several. We are their strategic and execution partner, which means that now we go together to a Stagwell client, the assembly team and my team next to each other, or the Gale team and the ARM team next to each other, and co-pitch really cool audio first ideas to their clients. So that's another way that we meet new clients.
Did you have like a crystal ball? How did you know this was going to come back around in this way?
So I got lucky because I had the opportunity to join this agency at an inflection point right when I was beginning to see all of the signs of acceleration, right? So I ran laundry service. I was at laundry service for 8.5 years, which is a social and digital focused creative agency. Um, I would so I was there for 8.5 years. I had an amazing time running and building up that agency. In late 2023, I entered into talks to join Ad Results as CEO. And that was really, if you think back to that time and kind of like Q3, Q4 of 2023, when podcasts were building enormous cultural heat and a very observable shift had happened where like when the smartless guys changed networks, had that happened, call it in 2021 or 2022, it would have appeared in like a specialist newsletter. Like if you subscribe to Pod News, then you would have heard about those guys shifting from one network to another. In the back half of 2023, that was showing up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, right? everybody was talking about this stuff. And it's obviously just because like people are consuming enormous quantities of digital audio and enormous quantities of podcasts and talking about it and relating to it in a super, super deep and often kind of parasocial way. And that gets marketers' attention. So the outreach to me about possibly joining ARM was right at the time that I was seeing all of these signs. So the stars really aligned, and I got super excited, and I ultimately joined the company in the first quarter of 2024.
It was cosmic. I love it. I know part of the business is not only making the connection here, but it's also keeping track of like the stats and how the partnerships are working. How does that work on the back end to know how well this is all working, for lack of a better?
Yeah. No, well, it takes a lot of work, and there are many different methodologies now to kind of triangulate performance in this world. And I think we have to be really good at it because a majority, although not all of our clients are really performance marketers, right? So like we have great brand marketing clients as well, and they have their own kind of brand KPIs, and that's much more about reach, consumer sentiment, and stuff like that. But on the performance side, performance marketers are hardcore and they want to see ROAS or CAC or CPI or CPA, right? Like real performance metrics. So in the olden times in audio, there were no real mechanisms to do that other than very blunt instruments like vanity URLs or discount codes where the code was linked to a particular show and then you could check the performance. And that stuff works, by the way. The problem with it is that it understates performance because it's leaky. So, depending on the research, if somebody says, like go to www.brand/the ringer, the research suggests that between 1 in 6 and 1 in 7 people will remember to type /the ringer, and everybody else, it'll just show up as a site visit, right? And so if you're just looking at the data, you would attribute that to Google, right? You'd attribute it to search or something, or you would just think it was a blind site visit. So anyway, there were existing methodologies, but they were leaky, and then you had to apply a multiplier, and it was a little bit tricky. But you could still prove it out. The other thing is that even in that era, you could do dark tests where you run media and then you go dark for a month, and then you see what happens to overall KPIs. And if they fall, which in a healthy campaign environment they will, then you can prove out performance that way. But anyway, I would say over the past 2 years, there has been a rapid evolution in more sophisticated ways of tracking performance in audio buys. And that's mainly through a proliferation of third-party audio attribution and pixel vendors. So there are many of them ranging from Claritas, which then bought Arts AI, to Podscribe, to Magellan AI, to Veritonic. So there's this whole third-party technology ecosystem now. And the methodologies and underlying data sets are all slightly different, but the basic idea is that you can drop a pixel into an audio stream that is either streamed or downloaded onto the user's device, and then the pixel can give you a lot of information about user behavior following exposure to a show or to an ad, right? Those tools are not perfect either. It's not like the crystal clean, gleaming black box data that you get from buying with a Google or a Meta, but it's much more rich of a data environment now than it was 24 months ago for those reasons. So I think our job as an agency and as a partner to our clients is to help them navigate this increasingly complex data and attribution environment and synthesize all of these different signals, because some of our clients are still doing the old school stuff, the how do you hear about us surveys, the vanity URLs, et cetera, and also running pixels and ingesting all of that disparate information, and then also ingesting sales data or whatever, site visit data, first party data that is provided to us on an anonymized basis by our clients, and then harmonizing it to extract insights. That's a big part of our value add and of our job.
Yeah, sounds like a big differentiator that you guys are kind of doing it the more modern way. What is I mean, I'm sure it's a broad brush, but what's sort of like the amount brands will spend? Like what does that sort of look like in terms of, I mean, obviously don't need disclosing on what this particular clients, but is there sort of a range that you see that, how does that look?
Yeah. So it ranges widely, obviously, as it does at most media agencies. We have over 50 clients, and some of them are just getting started, and some of them are extremely established spenders in this space that spending millions of dollars a month. I would say in terms of an introductory client that's just getting started in the space, we would look for no less than 100K a month in budget. And then in an ideal situation, we'd look for that to kind of scale to mid six figures and up to call it a million a month. That's a really strong kind of kickoff and scale that could happen over the first couple of months in a successful client relationship. But honestly, it varies widely from our big clients who are in multiple millions of dollars a month to smaller ones who are still ramping up.
That's fascinating. And and I guess you picking, you're the matchmaker in a way too, right? Because you are also connecting the podcasters on that side at least, and the radio. You're sort of making that match on that side of the coin too, right? Or do you have like a, how does that sort of work? I mean, you're putting the ads into the podcast that the brand is passing along. How do you select what,
I
like,
gotcha.
yeah, like which podcasters are gonna, be the right fits and all that?
First of all, it's very collaborative between us and the clients. And second of all, it is a classic media agency answer, which is there's art and science.
Yeah.
So, like, the science part is that because we've been doing this for a long time, we have a huge proprietary database of anonymized campaign data. So we can look back and see different categories and how they perform on different audio channels or even on individual shows and have signal that can then have predictive value when we're constructing a new media plan. So that's one science piece. And we're developing some really cool AI tools that help us better leverage that historical data to make higher quality predictions based upon it, right? But then there's also a huge subjective piece, which is like, does a brand want to be affiliated with this person? There's like a lot of hot takes in the whatever. There's a lot of hot takes on the internet, right? And podcasts are no exception. So brand safety and brand suitability are also very important to certain clients. Certain clients are like, whatever works, man. And that's cool too.
Uh,
But anyway, so we will use all of our tools and our also like our subjective experience buying in the space for so long. We'll put together a proposed media plan and a kind of a list of targets with explanations, and then the client will react to it. And they might say, we don't want to in these waters. That's a little bit dicey for us. That's a little bit off brand for us. And so it's an iterative process, particularly with a new client, to kind of zero in on the way that they want to show up in this space.
and they're coming to you with not, I mean, if they're paying $1 million a month or more, they're not coming to you with just one connection. You're connecting the brand with with many different opportunities, correct?
So that's why like if you want to like buy an ad on a podcast one time, pretty much anybody can help you figure out how to do that. Although you'll probably overpay for it because in audio, there's still a very significant scale discount, meaning that like, if somebody's spending 20 or $30 million a year with a vendor in audio, their rate card is going to be more attractive. So like small buys, you'll overpay, but anybody can do it for you. Your media agency can do it for you. But yes, our clients are looking to show up at scale. There's two flavors really. One is they haven't done anything meaningful in the space and they have realized that it's a strategic imperative for them to. And then we're kind of starting from scratch and we're building up our strategy alongside them and in concert with their broader brand strategy and campaign strategy, obviously. The other way is that a lot of clients start buying in-house with their in-house teams and they kind of like get to a ceiling beyond which it becomes logistically impossible for them to continue doing it themselves. And they realize they need professional support. And in those cases, we're inheriting a media plan that's usually working, right? Like, because they wouldn't have built out the internal competency if it weren't at least showing initial signs of working. And then we build upon that plan and we like conduct a strategic analysis of what they've been doing to understand why that's been working and then figure out how to scale it into 2 or 3 or 5x that.
Got it. Are are some agencies still, or some company or brands, I'm sorry, still not hip to this niche, do you think? I know I talked to a lot of people in influencer marketing. There's still some like legacy brands that they're not hip to it yet. They don't quite see it. Do you think there are some brands that are missing the boat and not taking advantage of what you're offering?
Well, I think there are definitely some like there's a couple parts to this question. One is, yeah, there are probably some people who don't see the value in podcasts or digital audio and are not themselves consumers of those channels. I think that's probably the smaller group of the people not showing up in a meaningful way on these channels, but like that group exists, right? I think the broader group of people who aren't spending on this channel are aware of the channel and are themselves consumers of the channel, but find it daunting to navigate, and they don't really have support because their media agency, as almost certainly, does not have a meaningful audio team that can help them show up in this space. And if they ask for an audio plan, they get like a generic, like, all with one vendor. Like, here's how you can spend a couple $1 million with Spotify. The best media plans are never just like shoveling all the money to one counterparty, right? Like, so, and on the influencer marketing side, because I guess like you could view host read endorsements as influencer marketing, right? Like I used to run a digital and social agency. We paid people who were famous on TikTok to say nice things about our clients. Paying somebody who's famous on a podcast to say nice things about your clients, to me, still is kind of in the vein of influencer marketing. But influencer agencies are also not equipped to buy on audio or with audio first creators at scale. So the larger category of folks who aren't really buying in this world see the value, but neither their influencer agency nor their media agency is fully equipped to help them.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Outside of just doing this kind of stuff, do you have any like what's I guess curious about your personal life? Do you have a hobby, things you enjoy outside of audio? You must be into music and stuff like that too, because if you're, I mean, audio adjacent.
Yes, I think there is a requirement that you have to like have been in a band if you are in the audio business, and I am no exception. But no, like my hobby list got much shorter once I had kids. That's like a boring but truthful answer. You know what I mean? Like it's easy to like be into photography and like like be like playing bar gigs with your band and doing all this stuff like pre kids, and then I think your world narrows a little bit. I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old at home, so I think I have like legacy hobbies that might kind of have a resurgence in a couple of years, is what I'm told by my friends with older kids. But right now it's a little bit light.
Yeah, man, you're preaching to the choir. I got two little ones, but in my mind, mine is 3 and 6, and thinking when you just said your children's age, I was like thinking when they're that age is when I'm going to see the light. But apparently, I'm still not going to get to the light yet until it's even older than that.
I mean, look, my daughter's learning how to play piano now. My main instruments are like stringed instruments, but I can play piano okay. And so I do. It's fun to sit with her and like play the little songs that she's practicing and stuff. So you find ways to weave it in.
Yeah. Well, I just started coaching t-ball, so that's sort of that's my new thing. I didn't realize what an endeavor it was. I first signed up thinking I was an assistant coach. I didn't know I was the actual coach. And my wife is, I was very late to answering a lot of the emails in the feed, and my wife was like, "You better take this seriously."
Do you have an outfit? Do they call you coach? Do they address you as coach?
They haven't yet. We only had our first practice in the rain, and it was like everyone was tired. We had a parade, and then we did that, and like, oh man, it's like it was a mess. There's like these and the little boys were just the worst. They're just like this one kid's just like, I need a picture, I need a picture, I need a picture. I'm like, dude. I mean, he must have said it like it was like the Family Guy, like mom, mom, mommy, mom, mom, mom. He said it like 100 times to me. He's like, not my kid. If he was my kid, I would have been like, you got to leave this coach alone. The kid just keeps saying it over and over again, and I'm like, dude, I'm like, this is t-ball. We're not. Nobody's pitching. It's you're hitting off a tee. This is it. This kid was driving me bonkers, but. Yeah, I guess that's for another podcast. But I will definitely say that children have changed like I have less and less hobbies, and the day just goes by so much faster. I'm like, oh, I would have loved to play piano, or should have gone on the elliptical for an extra hour, and I'm just like, holy smokes, like it's 8 o'clock at night. How did that happen? But it's a great thing. What kind of music did your band play when you were playing? Any original music?
We played a mixture of originals and covers. It was like a classic, like people doing it kind of as a hobby, but also gigging sometimes. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
totally. I used to tour, and I made an effort at the music thing up until I was about 30, and then in my late 30s I said, well, maybe I should try to gig again, and I started doing it like just a couple weekends and during a month, and it was too exhausting. Like I was just like I'd come home at like midnight. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And kids get up early, and I made my full retirement from performing last year.
Yeah. You never know. It may come back. You never know.
Yeah, it may come back, we'll see. Um, do you guys have any big plans in the future? Are there any sort of like long-term goals that ARM has?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I see in the market is a big need that is ill served right now. I see a lot of brands who like the parents are listening to podcasts on their way to work, the kids are consuming podcasts on YouTube. There's an enormous focus on the channel set. But even if the parent is the CMO of a Fortune 100 company, there's a decent chance that they're not really showing up in this space. So I view that as like both an opportunity, obviously, for our business and a problem to be solved. So we're working really hard to make this world more accessible to a broader swath of marketers to help them get involved.
Are you able to use some of your music interest in your job? I mean, I know that having music in ads is a thing. How are you connecting the music into that world at all as well?
Occasionally, but like, let me think about that.
Or do you?
A lot of times the production budgets for so again, there's like host read stuff where there's no music per se, and it's more like influencer marketing. You're working with the host, you're giving the host talking points, you're helping them show up and talk about this brand in an authentic way. So music isn't directly relevant there. And then on the produce side, if you're talking about like us making second or second audio spots and deploying them programmatically across the audio ecosystem, which we also do, music is a question there, but production budgets are typically really tight on those assets. And there's a couple of reasons why. One is that just like obviously the people who are allocating budgets on the brand side are allocating the vast majority of budgets to video assets, which is understandable, and only small budgets remain for audio. The second reason is that the assets change a lot because particularly in like a D2C or performance world, which again is a big chunk of my clients, different offers change, different campaigns. There's like high campaign velocity where you're focusing on different RTBs or different offerings, right? So if you're constantly making new stuff, then it gets really hard if you're trying to like license killer tunes for every one of those. So I think we do music with stock music houses. We're experimenting with client consent with AI generated music from time to time. So there's a bunch of different ways to kind of have interesting sonic experiences at lower price points, but like we're not putting together these like amazing tier one playlists just for pure cost reasons.
Yeah, no, I was sort of more curious about the libraries and if you guys were sort of looking into that world and curious if it makes any difference in performance if you go to a stock library for those things or if is the AI music seem like it's doing the trick in a lot of these things?
What I would say is that like we've been experimenting with AI creative in general, and the synthesized voices are better and more prone to contribute strongly to performance than the music. That's going to change. Like everything in AI is evolving very, very rapidly. But like right now, voice synthesis technology is ahead of music competition, composition.
Mm. What I guess what's like your tech stack that you kind of have going on right now in your within your team?
Yeah, well, like some of it is proprietary, but I guess like on the data side, we have a bunch of third party like sources of input, as I said, and then that's harmonized with our proprietary database. And then we have some software that belongs to us that we use to glean insights from that data. On the AI production side, we've played with a lot of different tools. And again, I keep saying this, but because it is such a rapidly evolving marketplace, like right now we have a tool set that we're doing most of our AI work with, but that might change in 2 weeks. Our team is constantly experimenting with all these tools as they roll out new offerings. And some of them are fully bespoke pieces of software, like people who have gone and actually trained their own voice models, which is very hard and time and compute intensive. And some of these tools are basically ChatGPT and 11 Labs wrappers, right? Where they're ingesting the APIs of kind of best in class commercial tools, and then they're creating either custom weighted versions of them or just really sophisticated UIs around them that make them more suitable for audio production work.
Awesome. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What is your team structure like? I mean, you talk about your team, and how many people work at ARM altogether, and what are sort of the people's different roles over there?
We're a little bit under 100. We're structured like a normal media agency, like there are kind of strategy and client service folks, there's media planners and buyers, there's data and analytics, there's media operations, there's creative, there's new business, the normal functions.
Yeah. And are you guys fully remote, or do you guys come into an office?
So it varies by office, is what I would say. So in the New York office where I and a bunch of kind of more senior leadership sit, we're in the office 3+ days a week. That's where I am now. In Houston, which is our largest office by head count, it's less frequently in the office, but at least weekly for most teams. And then we do have a handful of more than a handful, I should say, honestly. There's a decent chunk of the team that is fully remote because kind of during COVID, the team, like a lot of agencies, including my old agency, you're definitionally working fully remote during COVID. And then when you're making hires, you can pick up people in different locations. So very much a hybrid environment, but I feel like it's working really well for us.
Yeah. When you're finding people, do you what sort of I guess when you're finding people, like what sort of places do you typically find success, like in what sort of like I guess adjacent industries, do you find people that are from direct competitors typically, or is there a sweet spot of you know apples to apples for you?
Yeah, it's a mixture, and we have really good recruitment support, and so the answer to that question is different for different things. Sometimes you just need someone who's really categorically good at a function, and they can learn the nuances of audio, and sometimes you need someone who has spent years in audio and knows all of the counterparties and knows what a good CPM or a bad CPM is for a certain show. So it really varies on a case by case basis. For junior roles, we're just trying to find people who are smart and care about this space and are teachable. I think when you get more senior, sometimes you want to weight heavy on kind of technical expertise and we'll teach them the audio stuff. And sometimes you want to weight heavy on the audio expertise.
Yeah. What are typically like the hardest, people to find? Are there any specific roles that are like, oh, that's a tricky one?
It's an interesting question.
There's always so much paid media. I always see on LinkedIn, there's so many companies. They're always looking for that's such a common role. I wonder if is that one that's tricky, or is that pretty common?
It's like here's why I paused. The reason that I paused is because sometimes it's hard just to find candidates, right? It's like if it's really niche, it's just hard to find enough candidates to run a good process if it's some super niche thing and you have to have like produced tons of this particular type of audio spot or whatever. Other times you get tons and tons of resumes, but it's still hard because sifting through all the resumes and figuring out who really possesses the qualities that will lead to success is
Yeah.
the tricky part. So I don't know. Hiring is always hard in our business, whether or not there's 1,000 candidates or a dozen candidates, because finding the right person is like a separate question from candidate volume or anything else.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I mean, I do some work in the recruiting space as well, so I'm always just interested in seeing what are the pain points, what are the roles that are tricky to hire. I know in everything creative, it's always it's a tricky niche because it's not just, you're judging people's creative a little bit as well, which is
Yeah.
to the
We've had some easier experiences, honestly, on the creative side lately because there is so much liquidity in the market, right? There's just like a lot of people who started freelancing kind of during the COVID era, during like that big wave of people shifting to freelance. And then like now there's a little bit, I don't know if you're seeing this, but I've seen like a little bit of a backlash of people who've like tired of the instability of freelance life and are now looking for full-time roles again.
nice.
And so I think right now I'm seeing a ton of really talented people on the creative side, and a decent chunk of them fit into that category of people who flirted with freelancing but actually like want more stability and reliability.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that. But that can be tricky too, because when you deal with candidates that have been going on the freelance train and have done that for a while, sometimes you go to an employer and they're like, well, why did that person always want to go freelance? Like, if we bring them on staff, are they going to want to go freelance again? Like, sometimes it can be a little bit of, it can be a little bit challenging once you've gone to the freelance world to sometimes come back into the staff world. Right now, there are a lot of people. I mean, obviously, there's just been so many different things in entertainment, especially with the writer strikes and the actor strikes and like the lot of in-housing going on. There's just, there's just, budget cuts in the agency world is pretty ubiquitous. So it is, I think there are people that who have been on the freelance role world and are saying to themselves, yeah, I'd really like to just have a job, something that is like steady every day.
Yeah.
That, and there is a lot of talent out there. I think, but then that also for agencies becomes another staffing issue because, like you said, when you put out a job and you get 5,000 people that apply to it, when less than 1% are actually going to be qualified, somebody has to go through all those people, which is time consuming and takes
Yeah.
in time to go through all those people. Yeah, it's it is what it is, but it's a thing.
Yeah. It's a thing.
Yeah. But that's pretty cool. So you guys are set up fairly remotely, but you also have you're also doing stuff in house. Do you get
Yeah.
to travel to Texas to that office often?
Yeah, because we have team members in Houston and Austin. So I'm in Texas at least quarterly. I hosted our last all hands in person from that office, but of course we also zoomed it to everybody else. And then every December we do kind of like a multi-day team offsite into holiday party, which was extremely fun last year, and I look forward to this year's.
That's cool. Do you like Texas? I haven't spent too much time out there except for I've been to Austin a few times, but is it kind of fun to?
Too. Like all like where are you based?
Well, we are based in Los Angeles, essentially, but right now I'm at my home in Vermont. So we have
Oh,
I
nice.
that area.
Okay, so like everybody from a coast, my only not like speaking generically, like I had only really been exposed to Austin, and it sounds like you're the same. So I had never been to Houston before I joined this company, and it is first of all, it is like an amazing, amazing city. It does not conform to any of the kind of coastal stereotypes that you might have about what big city in Texas might be like. It's awesome. Amazing food, amazing Vietnamese food, amazing people, super, super diverse. Big, big Houston fan now that I've actually spent time there.
Nice. Yeah, I'd really like to go. That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, Austin's my only experience because my wife lived out there for a while, so we spent some time. But yeah, haven't been out there before. And you're in New York. Did you grow up in New York?
No, I grew up in Maryland, but I moved to New York after I graduated college, and so I've been here for over 20 years now.
Wow, that's pretty. Does it? Do you like the intensity of New York City? Do you like the vibe out there?
Yeah, I do. My wife and I both grew up in kind of like sleepy suburbs, and I think we both kind of like longed for this vision of kind of like a busy, sophisticated urban life. And like sometimes those are like childhood feelings that fade, and sometimes you like build your whole life around that. And we're like in the latter category, and we both really want to like have a family in New York, and we do, and it's awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, I had that same sort of romance with Los Angeles when I was there. I always was just like the palm trees and like this is amazing, and
Yeah.
so always I can totally get that. Well, we don't have too much more time here, but I'm curious. Do you I'd be curious, like as a CEO of a company, do you have what's like your like secret sauce? Are you a book reader? Are you an exercise guy? Do you have any mindset sort of
Oh,
philosophy?
like my secret sauce for
Life.
like keeping my shit together,
Uh,
like that kind of secret sauce. Yeah. So for me, I like have to work out at least twice a week, or I like it's not good for me mentally. Like I don't sleep as well, my focus is diminished. I think like my mood is less stable. So for me, working out 2 times a week minimum and ideally three is what keeps me centered and focused and feeling good and energized. That's like far and away number one. I think like I read books when I can. I recently read like an amazing novel called Long Island Compromise that I highly recommend. But like I read that when we were on like a little mini vacation. Like that's when I can sit down and actually spend a couple of hours reading a book. So no, like that's books aren't really the secret sauce. I think minimizing screen time and cutting down on the number of apps that I permit to like give me push notifications, and working out are the two biggest things. Like I don't get any news notifications anymore. I have the New York Times app on my phone. I turned off notifications. Like because I don't know. If you want to be distracted in 2025, you can be distracted in fairly unpleasant ways, like all day and all night. And I think for me at least, like I lacked the willpower to turn that stuff off just by like swiping away those. I would like read every push notification, and then I'd be like, that person said what? And then you lose 20 minutes of your life in like a negative internet hole.
Yeah.
So for me, it's that stuff. It's like time limits on certain apps and like very few push notifications that aren't like work or family specific.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm a big supporter of Insight Timer. That's a app that I do use every night.
Tell me about that. I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's just a meditative app. That's the word. Meditation app.
Yeah.
And you can choose all different kinds of things. So you can have like kid stuff, so it'll tell you like kid stories. I do that with my kids a lot for bedtime. We'll sort of just put on a sort of like the intro to meditation, but it's kind of like, welcome to the very safe forest, and their trees are, you know what I mean? It's like very like
Yeah.
got that kind of imagery in it. So
Yeah.
I think there's some good ones for adults too, So sometimes put on a little white noise, a little insight timer, and sort of just let the day go.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's
cool.
so highly recommend that
I will
for any.
check it out.
Yeah, and this is not paid by Insight Timer. We have
No,
no
noted.
we have no paid.
No SpawnCon on this podcast.
Not yet. Not yet. But hey, Jordan, thanks so much for coming on here today and speaking with us and giving us, just an insight on ARM and all the things you guys do. I really find it fascinating. So I just want to thank you for your time today.
It was great to be on.
All right, Jordan, be well, man. Thanks.